Algebra 2, that's where we are. We're on lesson 2-2, complex numbers. Okay, so complex numbers. This is a complex number, a plus bi. We're okay, Chris? All right, a plus bi, this is a complex number. I'm just going to represent z is a complex number. Do you have a what? A pen? See if you, does someone else have one? Here, use this. It's a golf pencil. No, borrow this one or someone else. We have to do the notes. All right, put it back when you're done. This is a complex number, but here's the cool thing. You have already been dealing with complex numbers your whole life because, do you know the number 1? Have you seen it before?
No.
Never? Let me change this to be bigger. The number 1. This number 1 is a complex number. What? I didn't even know that, Mr. Sindel. That's because 1 is a whole number. It also happens to be an integer because integer surrounds whole numbers. It's also a rational number. It's also a real number. You already knew it was a real number, but did you know it was also a complex number? 1 is all of these things. It's not imaginary, or it's not irrational, and it's not imaginary though. But 1 exists here, 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 here. It's kind of like how a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle might not necessarily be a square. 1 is all of these things. So this is the general form of a complex number. You have this part right here, and we're labeling this in our notes. This is the real part. Real. And I don't like the size. I want 1.5-ish. That's work. This part is the imaginary part. So there are 2 parts of a complex number, but if the complex number has, for example, let's assume that b is 0. If b is 0, 0 times I is, anything times 0 is 0. So 0 times I is 0. So if I choose a to be 1, b to be 0, that's 1 plus 0, which is 1. That means 1 is a complex number. The imaginary part just happened to be 0i. That's why it's still a complex number. By the way, on Khan Academy and on all the problem sets you'll see for this class, when I say real, I don't like writing it out. I'm lazy, so I'm just going to say RE. RE of something. Imaginary, I say capital I, lowercase m, imaginary. Write that down in your notes. Write it down. That is important. It is starred. Make sure it is in your summary. All right, so we know that 1 is not only a whole number, but it's also an integer, a rational number, a real number, and a complex number. But if I say, for example, don't write this down. I'm just doing this as an example. I'll do this in orange. Just don't write this down. 3 plus 2i. This is not a real number. Are you okay, Chris? Wiping boogers off on the desk, I see. Okay, so 3 plus 2i. This is a This is a complex number, 3 plus 2i. It is a complex number. If I had just written 2i, that is right here. That is imaginary. If I wrote 3 plus 2i, now I'm in this realm of complex numbers because it has an imaginary part along with a real part. So real plus imaginary means complex. You don't necessarily need to have both those things. You can just have one or the other and you're still a complex number. In fact, you don't really, I guess since we talked about infinities, you have learned something that doesn't exist in this plane, but basically every number that you can envision, square root of -5, square root of 3, pi, e, 1, 1/2, 3/2, all of those numbers are complex numbers. The only thing that doesn't exist there are types of infinity like aleph, null that we learned about last Monday. So basically every number that you've ever thought about since you were a little baby is a complex number. So I think I've beat the dead horse long enough. Let's go ahead and see an example. I want the real part of this complex number. What is the real part of that complex number with a quiet raised hand? There are 3 people that know. This entire group knows that. Okay, there we go. Some people in that group know. Stego. Say it louder. 6. Yeah, loud and proud. It is 6. 6 is the real part of Z. Let's come over here and give you your XP. That rhymes. Stego, you got your XP. What is the imaginary part here? Be careful. This might be tricky, James. Oh, you got it. Negative 4i. The negative is included with the imaginary part. All right, here's another type of question that you might encounter. What type of number is this? 104i minus 33.24. And I'm choosing all answers that apply. I could choose all three. I could choose one. I could choose two. Choose all answers that apply. What do you think? A and B, B and C, A, B and C, just A, just B, just C. What is the answer, Gio?
C.
Just C. All right, thumbs up, thumbs down. Agree, disagree. Most, I see a thumbs up, a thumbs in the middle, thumbs in the middle, thumbs up. Everyone either agrees or is not too sure. So I will tell you this. You have the answer correct. It is complex. It is correct. So thank you, Joe.
No problem. Never get it.
In order to only be real, I can only have the real part. In order to be just imaginary, I just need the imaginary part. So let's see a different type of an example. Example 3. What type of number is 78? Choose all answers that apply. Again, it's that all answers that apply. What's the answer? Quiet raised hand. Let's see those hands. Hands, hands, hands. I see Stego's hand. I see Andrea's hand. I see James' hand. I see Fiona's hand. Andrea.
Wow.
A and C. What do we think? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is everyone doing thumbs? Does everyone get the XP? Chris, would you vote? Yeah, it is. That's the correct answer. It is A and C. So, Andrea, you get your 50 XP, and you all did your thumbs, so you all get your 10 XP. And yeah, so that's what we've just done right there in terms of our unit guide. Oops, let's come back here. In terms of our unit guide, we just did this and this. We were able to look at the parts of a complex number, and we looked at what they are classified as. Now we're going to do that third part, the third assignment for tonight, plotting them on the complex plane. So if I come back on the back side, I should hear paper flipping because you're on the back side, or you already did it.
I already did.
Yeah, you guys are just too fast. Plotting complex numbers. This is no longer the coordinate plane. The coordinate plane used to be x and y, right? This was the x-axis. This is the y-axis. That is now out of the window. We are onto our new shadow dimension, our new complex plane. Let's go ahead and label it right over here. Complex plane. That's what we're dealing with. I cannot spell plane. It used to be the coordinate plane. Now it's the complex plane. And the axes are slightly different. This is no longer the x-axis. This is now the real axis. This is no longer the y-axis. What would you guess? If this is the real, this must be the Geo? It is the imaginary. I'm just going to say I am because I'm lazy. That's the imaginary. That's all I want to say about this. Let's look at two examples. Example 4 has two parts in it. I want to plot -6 minus 3i in the complex plane below. All right, so I am going to do this one. You are going to do this one. You're going to do the bottom one. I'm going to do the top one. The top one, I'm going to go -6 in the real direction. So I go -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm right here right now. I need to go -3i in the imaginary direction. So I come down 1, 2, 3. There it is. That is, this point right here represents -6 minus 3i. What I want you to do right now is I want you to plot -2 plus I. Question? The wrong graph? Yeah, this graph was just to show you the imaginary and real. This is the graph that we're going to do both of our examples on. Yeah, I agree. That's a little bit unclear. I will say for the future years that do this, we need two graphs. I'll improve my notes for next year. Thank you for that. Plot -2 plus I on that same graph. Where does it go? Now check. Check with people around you. Did they plot it on the same point? Did they plot -2 plus I, this thing right here? Did they plot that on this complex plane the same as you? So this one I'm going to do with blue. This one I'm going to do with red. -2 plus I. -2 plus I. There it is. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Did you get this answer? Uh-oh, only one person doing thumbs up. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Did you get that answer?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Then that's it. That concludes our notes. That concludes all of our notes. Remember, this is the main thing that you need to include in your summary. If you want to add extra stuff, you can. Once you're done writing your summary at the very bottom, please check with people around you to see if you can add anything else or if their summary is okay. And then you may begin on the homework.